In an explosion, the air blast shockwave is the primary force of destruction, strong enough to rip a car into pieces. But against a heavily armored vehicle, that shockwave alone isn't enough. This is why modern anti-tank weapons don't just rely on sheer explosive power, they do something far more devastating. An anti-tank rocket travels faster than the speed of sound, but watch what happens when it detonates. The blast is just the beginning. The real destruction comes from something much more lethal, an ultra-fast hypersonic jet of metal, moving at speeds of 4 to 8 kilometers per second. This jet cuts through thick armor like a hot knife through butter. The battle between tanks and anti-tank weapons started as soon as tanks rolled onto the battlefield in World War I. Early anti-tank rifles relied on kinetic energy to punch through armor, but as tanks became tougher, anti-tank guns had to become bigger, heavier, and more powerful. This arms race led to the development of massive, unwieldy weapons that were impossible for infantry to carry. Then came the game changer, the RPG-43, a handheld anti-tank grenade. But there was a major problem. Since it was thrown by hand, soldiers had to get dangerously close to enemy tanks. This was a suicide mission. The solution? The development of the RPG-7, the world's most widely used rocket-propelled grenade. It allowed soldiers to destroy tanks from a safe distance, changing warfare forever. But how do these weapons actually work? Unlike regular grenades, which rely on shrapnel, anti-tank grenades use something called a shaped charge. Inside the warhead is a metal liner, carefully shaped into a cone. When the explosive detonates, it creates an extreme pressure wave that collapses this metal liner into a focused, hypersonic jet of molten metal. It's not the explosion itself, but the sheer kinetic energy of this jet that slices through armor. This principle makes RPGs incredibly effective. The wider the warhead, the deeper the penetration. One of the reasons RPGs outperformed bazookas, which had to keep their warheads smaller due to internal launch tube restrictions. But even RPGs have a weakness. In 2017, during intense urban combat in Marawi, Philippine forces faced militants armed with older RPG-2 launchers. With no heavy tanks at their disposal, the government troops had to improvise. Their solution, covering their vehicles with wooden slats and cardboard. Sounds ridiculous, right? But here's the science behind it. The hypersonic metal jet from an RPG warhead is only lethal for a short distance. By forcing the warhead to explode slightly farther away from the armor, even thin layers of wood significantly reduced its penetration power. This same principle is why modern tanks are covered in metal cages, to prematurely detonate incoming warheads. But slat armor alone isn't enough against modern anti-tank weapons. This is where explosive reactive armor, ERA, comes in. These metal boxes on tanks aren't just for show. Inside them are specialized explosives that won't detonate from gunfire or fire, but will react to an anti-tank warhead's shockwave. When hit, the ERA panel explodes outward, disrupting the hypersonic jet and reducing its ability to penetrate the main armor. Interestingly, the same shaped charge technology used in RPGs is also a key component in nuclear bombs. In early nuclear designs, a series of carefully arranged shaped charges, known as explosive lenses, focused their blast waves to compress the bomb's core, triggering a chain reaction. But after accidental detonations of conventional explosives in nuclear bombs during plane crashes in the 1960s, the US military had to rethink their design. This led to the development of insensitive high explosives, stable enough to withstand impacts without detonating, but still powerful enough to trigger a nuclear explosion when needed. Yet even explosive reactive armor isn't enough to stop modern anti-tank weapons like the Javelin. The Javelin missile has a tandem warhead, 2 explosive charges. The first warhead neutralizes the tank's reactive armor, while the second delivers the kill shot. And to make matters worse for tanks, the Javelin attacks from above, where armor is weakest. This raises a major problem for modern militaries. A single tank costs anywhere from $5 million to $10 million, before adding an active protection system, which costs another one to $2 million. But a Javelin missile? Just $200,000. And against multiple incoming Javelins, even the most advanced active protection systems struggle. The balance of power is shifting. Tanks, once the kings of the battlefield, are now at risk of being overmatched by lightweight, portable, and cost-effective anti-tank weapons. So, are we witnessing the end of the tank era? Or will new technologies emerge to shift the scales back in their favor? One thing is certain: warfare is evolving, and the future of armored combat has never been more uncertain.